What is going on, everyone? It is Wraith here, back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to be going over some tips to help you guys improve and start placing higher in cash cups. These tips you can use for solo cash cups, trio cash cups, and even in future seasons for solos, duos, or trios. But if you're looking forward to this video, make sure you slap a like button on it, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into the video. So the first tip I'm going to give is you have to play to your strength and play to your play style. Too many people go, oh, I see Benji Fishy W King and he comes first every single time, so I'm going to do exactly that, and they end up finishing top 5,000 with 23 points, right? You got to realize that in many case scenarios, you do want to copy what pros do. You want to copy how they practice, blah, 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 things like that. But in cash cups and how they play, majority of you guys watching this video aren't as good as Benji Fishy, aren't as good as Mitra, aren't as good as whoever you're talking about, these pro players, right? And the reason for that is they can get away with W King like the entire game, landing at big POIs, like for example Lazy, like Benji lands there. Majority of people can't get away with that because they're just going to die most games, right? So you got to basically figure out how you play, what your play style is, and then basically figure out what you want to do based around that. So for example, if you really like W King and you feel like you win a lot of fights but you struggle a little bit end game, maybe mid game a little bit, but you're really good off spawn, really good mid game, then make sure you land somewhere like Lazy, like somewhere like Misty, Tilted, like places that are high POIs that a lot of people land right at the start, so then you can get as many kills as possible, try and get some points because you obviously get points for W King, and then go from there. If you play a little bit more passive and you're way better end game, you struggle a little bit off spawn, whether you just get terrible RNG or you struggle when you don't have full mats, whatever the case is, then maybe land somewhere like a non-POI, like somewhere out of the way where maybe 0 to 1 persons land. If you're kind of right in the middle and you kind of get a little bit of kills off spawn, you don't mind fighting off spawn, and you really want to set yourself up for endgame, land a POI like Craigie, Steamy, like somewhere that's a little bit out of the way, but still some people land there. So for my opinion, in cash cups especially, make sure that when you're landing and figuring out what you do, don't just copy what you see pro players do. Don't just W key just because Benji Fishy does. Make sure you play to your strengths, and that will allow you to do so much better. And that's the same thing goes for trios. Like that was mostly solos. Same thing goes for trios. If your trio is really good at fighting, go land somewhere off spawn and try and get as many kills as possible. If you're really good end game, tarping, have really good comms, can pop off end game, land somewhere where not that many trios land. So my next tip, and this is a really big one, is having map knowledge of hotspots. So basically what I mean about that is unless you're really confident and you're going for those 15-20 kill games, and even if you are, make sure you stay away from hotspots in the map. I'll put a picture on the screen and basically talk about this, but basically the high targeted areas of the maps you really want to stay away from. Even if you're W King, you really need to be aware of these hotspots, because if you fight someone in this spot, there's a really good chance that you're going to get third partied. So basically the blue like kind of circles are really high targeted areas where almost everyone rotates through. The reason for that is because there's a lot of POIs surrounding that area and they all line up to that exact spot. And if you basically play arena, you play cash cups, you'll see, if you go to those places, you'll see how many people really rotate through there. The red circle just basically surrounding the middle of the map, anywhere in there a lot of people rotate through. So if you really want to stay alive to endgame, and even if you're W King, pay really close attention to anything inside that red circle, because there's going to be tons of people rotating through there. And like I said, even if you're W King, there's a high potential that you're going to get third partied. And if you're playing for endgame, just basically, in my opinion, stay away from the red zone, and especially stay away from those little blue circles, because if you do that, the more likely you will not encounter other players. If you go through there, obviously if you need to rotate through there, go through there, but just pay attention and make sure you try your best to kind of avoid those situations, unless you're going for that W key, those high kill games. Like if you're W keying in your first 2 games, and 100% if you need to find people, go to those spots, but just be aware that there's going to be a lot of people and you're most likely going to get third party. So now the next thing is you need to have a game plan. So many people go into a cash cup or even any really tournament and they just kind of go with the flow. They just, hey, whatever happens, happens. If I'm on that day, I do good and then maybe I get 60 points. If I'm off that day, hey, I'll play a couple games and get off, right? In my opinion, that's not really recommended. You're most likely not going to do as good as you possibly could, and you're going to be a lot more inconsistent than you would be if you have a game plan. So basically, have a general game plan that you can basically follow, and if you need to change it up a little bit. So for example, if you want 100 points, you need 10 points per game. Pretty obvious, right? You have 10 games, unless you only get like 8 played, then maybe you need like what, 12 points per game, something like that, right? But basically, if you're at 35 points after game 2, you're pretty good. Like, you're doing ahead of plan, so make sure you just stay calm. You're like, hey, all I need to do is just play passive. I'm good. Unless you're still W keying, just kind of stick with your game plan and just be like, hey, look, I'm doing really good. No need to panic. I just got to play my game and I'm good to go. I just need to keep going. If you're at 5 points after 2 games and your plan's 100 points, well, then you got to switch things up a little bit. If you're playing passive and it wasn't working, maybe try W keying a little bit. If you're W keying and it's not working, maybe just play passive and go for those end game points and kind of get back on track, right? Because if you're off track, you basically need to figure out how to get back on there. You can kind of figure out a schedule beforehand. Be like, okay, so if I'm doing bad, I'm going to W key a little bit. If I die, I die, but at least I'll have the chance at getting more points. If you're W keying and you start to do bad, just be like, okay, maybe I'm going to switch back and go to a little bit more passive play, right? If you want to finish like top 100 or top 500, look at the recent weeks that have happened and basically figure out what the average is. Like, for example, if top 100 for week 1 was like 100 points, and then week 2 was 105, and then week 3 was 105, you're probably going to need around what, 100 to 105 points, right? So basically you just say that you're going to need around 10 to 11 points per game, right? So make sure you try and stay on track and stick with your game plan. So for example, something you could do would just be like, okay, so for the first 2 games, I'm going to W key, I'm going to try and get as many kills as possible, and then the rest of the 8, I'm going to play passive, right? Or if I die off spawn that first game, I'm going to play 1 more game W key, or if I die off spawn, I'm going to go straight to passive, and I'm going to play 9 games passive, right? Just basically have a game plan and try and stick to it unless you're doing really bad and you really need to switch it up. So the next thing that's very important is you need to play with positive peoples. And this goes for trios, solo, duos, squads, whatever the case is, right? If you see pro players all the time, they're always in call with their friends or always in calls kind of hyping each other off. Obviously, they're like joking around and like calling each other trash the odd time, but it's like joking, right? If you're in trios, just make sure you have like a trio that is very positive and continues to hype you up. Trust me, I've had trios, I've had duos that are just so frustrating because every single time you guys die or you die or make a bad play, they just absolutely tear you apart and it just brings you down. You like feel a little more nervous. The next time you don't want to push because you're kind of nervous, you want to screw up and they're going to yell at you or they're going to call you trash or whatever the case is, right? So in my opinion, if you have a trio like that, literally just drop them and go find another one. You want to find a trio that supports you. Hey, you die because you made a bad play, just be like, hey, maybe don't do that next time. Like, just play a little bit more passive. Or if you do really good, they just be like, hey, good stuff. Like, you just did a really good job, blah, blah, blah. Same thing goes with solos. In my opinion, if you're looking, if you're playing Cash Cups, hop in a Discord call or hop in a game chat or game party or whatever the case is. Play with people that are positive. Play with your trio. Find people on Discord that you can play with that support you. Like if you're playing solos and you're with a call with someone who's pushing you and being like, hey, like, let's go, you got this, you're gonna come top 100, blah, 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 you're gonna do a lot better. You're gonna feel a lot more calm. You're gonna be able to handle your nerves a little bit better. In my opinion, just play a lot better. And a lot of you guys are like, well, I don't have anyone to play with. You can literally just look up the Discord for your server. Like if you play NA West, you join West Open or East Open, or there's a bunch of EU or OCE. Like there's a bunch of different ones that you can join. Literally just look them up on YouTube, on Safari. There's plenty of different ones you can join. Look through the Discord. You'll find looking for players. You literally just add a couple people, and then once you find people that are pretty positive, pretty fun to play with, you literally just add them and then keep talking with them every single couple of the games, or you can even maybe play duos and stuff with them. So the last tip, and this is really important, and so many people fail to do this, is you need to learn and improve every single Cash Cup, and tournaments included, every single time, whether it goes good or bad. So for example, if it goes bad, don't just get off and rage quit and just be like, oh, I'm mad, I'm blah, 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 right? Like, don't do that. You're not improving. You're not going to get better from that. And next week, you could do the exact same thing, right? Maybe take a break or something. If you're upset, just get off, blah, 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 come back on. But when you come back on or right after, make sure you clip your games and actually go over your gameplay and be like, hey, what went wrong? Was I rotating bad? Did I take bad fights? Did I push people off spawn when I shouldn't have? Like, did I not farm up enough? Or did I do bad edits during the fight? Was my rotations endgame bad, tarps bad? Whatever the case is, right? Look over it, look over your gameplay, write down what you need to work on, because if you didn't do good, there's obviously going to be reasons as why you didn't do good. So either write it down or just remember and be like, okay, I need to work on this, work on it during the week. So for example, if your rotations was bad, really focus, play some customs, play some arena, work on your rotations, make sure they're a little bit better for going into next week, right? Because if you don't do this, you're not going to improve, you're not going to do better than next week, you're just going to stay where you are, right? The other thing is, even if you do really, really good, do the same thing. Like, just do it from the opposite side. Like, if you did really good, look over your rotations, look over your game, look over your fights. Just be like, was I rotating really well? Write them down, and then continue on next week. Don't just play really well, don't look over your gameplay at all, and then go into the next week, because you could do bad, right? So make sure you're going over your gameplay, whether it's good, whether it's bad, figuring out what you did, whether, even if you had some bad cash cops, like if you had 10 points in 10 games, there still could be things that you did right. Maybe take that over into next week, right? Pay attention, learn every single cash cop, every single tournament you do, and then improve from there. If you're not, then you're just going to stick where you are. You're most likely never going to get better. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you slap a like button on it, comment what you want to see for a future video, hit that subscribe button, use creator code WraithFN in the item shop, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.